We'll go ahead and get the Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting started here. Scott, will you call roll, please?
Sure. James Corbin.
Yes, here.
Tomas Delgado.
Here.
Madeline Garbas. Stacy Gloss.
Here.
Jessica Lemkel. Andrew Stump.
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
Grace Wilkin.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting from February.
So we motion before discussion, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll motion.
Thank you.
Second?
Excellent. Any discussion?
A third.
I wanted to make sure that Scott, did you see my email about there was something that was maybe from the previous minutes that was in there? Did you get an updated version?
Yep, we'll get that changed
Okay, that's
when
my,
it's finalized.
okay, that's my only thing.
There's also a missing word under the public input in the changes to the agenda, the first sentence.
I'm sorry, Andy, I don't know where, can you describe where that is and what the change is?
So just it's on the first page under the public input title. It's the first sentence there. So Sarah Nixon came on to share, and there's a missing word there. The words.
Oh, so it should be public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussions? Okay, we'll have Scott call the roll to vote on the minutes as amended.
James Corbin.
Yes.
Tomas Delgado.
Yes.
Madeline Garbaz. Stacy Gloss.
Yes.
Andrew Stump.
Yes.
Morgan White.
Yes.
Grace Wilkin.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Are there any additions to the agenda this evening? And I would phrase it as, or is there any motions to make any additions to the agenda this evening?
No.
Hearing none, we will move on to public input. I'm just going through the attendees. If any of the attendees would like to offer public input at this time, I believe that you can raise your hand using the Zoom function. Okay, nobody has raised their hand. We will move on. Welcome to the members of the public that have joined us this evening and are listening in. Thank you. First on presentations this evening is the CARES plan from the Urbana Park District. And do we have Kara on the line presenting for the Park District?
Yes, I'm here, and also Savannah Donovan is an attendee right now, and she's presenting with me if someone could make her a panelist.
Yes, we can. Great, she's been added. And do you have presentation materials that you need to show screens on?
Yes, we have
Okay.
a presentation that it's about, I think it's 20 slides or a little, maybe 19.
Great. Let's
Looks
see if we
like,
could-
yes, it looks like I can share now. Whenever you want me to go, let me know.
Go right ahead. Welcome. We look forward to hearing about the CARES plan. And I do apologize this evening that I don't recall off the top of my head what CARES stands for. But Kara, welcome. Savannah, welcome. Glad that you're here.
Thank you.
And we look forward to learning more.
So the good news is that I put the acronym on the first slide. As you mentioned, we're from the Urbana Park District, and the CARES plan is our climate action plan, sustainability plan, or any number of names that often these plans are called. But ours is UPD CARES, which is climate action, resilience, education, and sustainability. And right now we're in a public input period where we're gathering survey responses, doing presentations to groups like this, working with our extended staff group, and so on. So just real quickly, I'm Kara Dudek, and I'm park planner for the Park District, and I'm also a Climate for Health ambassador, which is a training I went through from Eco America, which helps with creating discussions around climate change and health and the ways that humans can do things to better this situation, but really just creating discussion points so that people aren't scared of talking about climate change or any of the things that we can do to help.
And hello, everyone. I'm Savannah Donovan, and I am the Environmental Public Program Coordinator for the Urbana Park District. I'm based out of the Anita Purvis Nature Center, and I am trained as a climate reality leader through Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Corps. It has some overlap with the Climate for Health training that Kara took, but main pillar in both of those is really communication and community engagement. And so, that's a big portion of our plan that we're going to introduce to you tonight. So in addition to Kara and myself, who are sort of heading up our steering committee for this plan, we have about 10 or so other staff at the Park District. They're coming from all different departments and facilities, and they've all helped us to draft the goals that you'll see tonight. And in that way, we've been able to get, a lot of different perspectives on this internally. And now, as Kara said, we're in our public input period, so we're really looking for a lot of feedback from everybody else in the community. We don't want to take too much of your time tonight, so I'm just going to really quickly skim through. Basically, this is why are we doing this at the Park District? Well, we really feel it's within our mission to improve the quality of life of Urbana citizens, to contribute to the attractiveness of neighborhoods, conservation of the environment, and overall community health. So a lot of the different parts of the CARES plan really pertain directly to our mission. Kara, you can go to the next slide, please. And, for those of you who, are wondering why we need a climate plan, well, the Park District does acknowledge that carbon pollution is warming our planet. We do not feel this is a partisan issue, but something that's, backed up by science. And we see that it's having local effects. So throughout the Midwest, we see both increasing droughts and more flooding events. And it affects human and environmental health. So heat-related deaths, poor air quality, food production, and of course, disproportionately affecting vulnerable populations. So we're here to present a plan to start addressing some of these issues locally.
And so with that, our plan has 3 pillars or overarching themes in which we tried to create goals around. We know that it's a big topic and there can be a lot of discussion points and a lot of different kinds of goals. So our first is communicating climate action, which underscores the Park District's commitment to serve as a community leader and role model for climate action through internal practices, public outreach and programs, and collaborative partnerships. Protecting and strengthening our natural environment reinforces the Park District's responsibility to care for the health of humans, plants, animals, ecosystems, and the climate by reducing our carbon footprint, stewarding natural areas, and improving air and water quality. And then the third pillar or overarching theme is called Conserving Resources, which highlights the Urbana Park District's dedication to the sustainability of natural resources through conserving energy and water, using clean energy, reducing waste, and increasing recycling and reuse.
So those are just the three main pillars of the plan under which all of our goals and objectives are nested. So in the interest of not taking too much of your time this evening, we're really just going to look at the plan mostly on the level of the goals. But you should have received in your a packet, before this meeting, a full draft of the plan for your review. And if you haven't taken a look at that draft, we would really love for you to take a deeper dive sometime soon. And then at the end of this presentation, we're going to share with you the link to the public survey. And we're really trying to get, all of you and as many people as you can, help us to take that survey. So looking at the first pillar of communicating climate action, we have 5 goals in this pillar. The first is focusing on internal practices at the Park District. So objectives have to do with internal staff training, policies, and procedure type stuff inside the Park District. Goal number 2 is providing outreach and programming opportunities to best communicate climate action to diverse audiences. And within that goal, the objectives are breaking down how to reach different audiences, in the best ways. So for youth, that could be through summer camps. It could also be through school programming, programming specifically for teens, and then outreach and opportunities specifically for populations who are historically underserved by the Park District. So, potentially those lower income neighborhoods, maybe neighborhoods that don't have a nearby neighborhood park, or maybe they do, and we want to make sure that we're prioritizing those parks and those neighborhoods first. As we're talking, if you want to jump in at any time with questions or comments, feel free to. All right. The next goal, 3, is providing leadership and public information to advocate for environmental sustainability and climate action. So that's sort of a different level of communication, specifically, reporting on our progress with the CARES plan. Are we meeting our goals and objectives? And then providing other public information pieces, using social media, website, that sort of thing. Goal 4 is maybe my favorite in this pillar because it was sort of a surprise that this one came through our plan, but this one is focusing on communicating environmental topics and opportunities for climate action through art, sculpture, and interpretation. So, in that goal, we're going to be wanting to work with, we have lots of opportunities with 40 North and I think the Urbana Arts Commission. I can't remember if that's what they're called, but there's lots of art organizations in town. And it's just another way of communicating, right? Goal 5 is to collaborate with partners to reach new audiences and expanding our climate change impacts in the community. So those objectives sort of call out some specific groups that we'd like to partner with, but really the sky is the limit. We see the more overlap, the more partnerships and collaborations we can have, the better.
Savannah, I wanted to add, or I just wanted to comment on that one. We had similar thoughts about some goals. Well, in our discussions about environmental justice work for the SAC, one of the things we were looking at how to increase those collaborations with multiple partners. So I'm glad to see that you guys is one of the partners that we can collaborate with. Also, collaborate with partners. I like that overlap there.
Thank you. Thanks. So those are the 5 goals for this pillar, but if you haven't had a chance to look at the full draft, or maybe you have and it's can seem a little bit overwhelming how we have this sectioned off, I just wanted to give you kind of a deeper dive into one of these goals so you can see how the main draft is formatted. Within each goal, we have a number of objectives. This is just objective B, as you can see, for goal 4. So this goal is that communicating through art, sculpture, and interpretation. So you see that our specific objective is to use art and sculpture as a means to communicate environmental concerns and climate action. Our strategies, we have 2 listed here. One is to work with local artists to display temporary art exhibits to raise awareness of environmental issues. And second, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Wandell Sculpture Garden that's at Meadowbrook Park, while integrating themes of natural areas and climate change. For each of those strategies, we have performance measures listed. So in that next column, the performance measure is what tells us that we have accomplished the strategy. So, this is a statement that's saying we can check yes or no, did we do this? So for the first strategy, to have at least one new piece displayed in an Urbana park each year, and then additionally to create a short video about that piece to, maybe not everybody can come and see it. So, put a video out there so they can find another way to be connected with that. And then on the far right column, you see the responsible staff groups. So this looks like it's very organized, like it's laid out, like it's final. It's not. This is still a working draft for comment and change. We just really wanted to give kind of as much meat on there as we could for people to react to. But when you take the survey, it's going to ask you things like, which goals do you prioritize? What topics are the most important to you personally versus, what do you think the park district should be prioritizing? And it gives you lots of opportunity to add your own feedback about, do you think the strategies or performance measures are appropriate or feasible, or maybe they're not aggressive enough. So that's all different kinds of input that you can provide to us on this plan.
Hey, can I just make a real quick comment?
Yeah, please.
I love this idea. I was reading through the plan, and I think this is an awesome idea. So I got a few things I definitely will go on there and take the survey and add. And yeah, I also see a way that this could be a way to bring more culture and diversity to the whole area, which is something that, both of our goals align. The SAC, from what I read, and your goals, a lot of these are directly in line with each other, and especially the awareness part. So I just want to make that quick comment, and I thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. That's great to hear. We really we're hoping to have some overlap, because I think with the more shared goals we have, the more collaborative opportunities we have. And, it's like the reverberations can grow, right? We can kind of grow our impact in the community. So thank you, Tiger.
Definitely. Thank you. So I will continue on to the next pillar and hope that you're all hanging on as we try to get through this very quickly. Pillar 2 is protecting and strengthening our natural environment. And this one has 4 goals underneath it. So reducing the district's carbon footprint, improving air quality, stewarding biodiversity through responsible care and expansion of natural areas. And then goal 4 is about enhancing aquatic and public health through water quality. So these, especially the carbon footprint and the air quality, are things that you may commonly see in plans like this, but the biodiversity and ecosystem services and all of our prairies and so on is something that the park district, it's in our wheelhouse, and we can continue to expand and do well. And so a lot of our goals focus on biodiversity and plantings, and that's one of the goals that we're going to get up close and personal with here. So the objective is to increase the amount of quality naturalized area at the park district, and that's through creating a network of insect and wildlife corridors, everything from naturalized areas and parks to pollinator pockets, no-mow zones, and increasing the, the wealth of what we already have through invasive species removal and adding more species to existing natural areas. So it's not just about how much, but also the quality it provides for the different habitats. And also these are the performance measures. So it's a 5-year plan. So increasing this network by 5,000 square feet is one performance measure that we can easily know whether or not we've accomplished. But also there's another one to inventory our existing parks and natural areas. And if there are any parks that don't have any native plants, and that's specifically rain gardens, things like that, then they will be installed there. So of course we have turf grass and flower beds and so on in all of our parks, but how can we really amp up the biodiversity in those different locations.
I just wanted to take a second to tell you, to inform you that the U of I has, as part of our resilience commitment, a goal to develop a community-wide biodiversity plan. And we are, we're hoping to have that get launched and the plan input from many, many stakeholders, and Park District and others are on the list for those stakeholders. I suspect that would get started like this during the summer and be a long time planning process, like maybe a year or so to go through the process of the plan, maybe 2 years, I don't know. Just so you are aware, because we're talking about biodiversity.
And our goals sort of expand upon that. Of course, we can't necessarily make something happen in land that we don't own, but we can work with our neighbors and work and help educate the community and create those connections and corridors. Like the saline is a good example of how the Park District owns pockets of land along it, but we can work with other landowners to enhance what exists there. Thank you.
All right, and our final pillar is conserving resources. Pretty simple stuff in this pillar. Goal 1, reduce our consumption of energy and water. Goal 2, utilizing cleaner energy and reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. Next, to reduce waste generated through our programs, facilities, and processes. And goal 4, increasing our recycling and reuse in order to divert waste from landfills. So in our more detailed look, we're looking at the objective of initiating the transition toward electric powered vehicles and equipment. We are kind of already starting this strategy to research electric and hybrid vehicle options, and then also researching and testing electric equipment for future purpose. I won't go into the performance measures, but there they are. You know, we're really just trying to make a plan for this transition to happen sooner than later. You know, in some of our objectives and things, we may do them faster, you know, depending on how easy they are. But that's another part of this input period, is to help us identify what are the objectives and strategies that are, you know, going to take first priority versus those that are going to take longer time to carry out. You know, some of them are going to be pretty easy ones to do in the first couple years of this plan, but others may take a much longer time. So this is an example of kind of an easy one we can probably accomplish in the first couple years here.
That was pretty much all we had for content. When we did a public meeting, we had a couple of prompt questions. We know we don't have too much time now, but one of the questions we asked was, how can we connect more people to this discussion of local climate action and climate change in general? And we were wondering if maybe you all had any good ideas related to the plan or just general discussion for all of us working together towards these goals that overlap.
Curious what your interaction with the K through 12 schools are in the community. On campus, we're trying to do a lot more connection just from the facilities and operations side to the teaching and research side. So we have more of a living laboratory on the campus. And there's a challenge to do that, right? You got to find the people who are teaching a class that can fit you into their syllabus, or you got to if a student volunteers, you've got to find the staff people who can help oversee what they're doing so they can continue to have that interaction. Or if you have 100 different groups wanting to do something and you only have one person who's trying to answer all their questions, right? There's definitely challenges to it, but there's so much benefit. So yeah, speak to that a little bit about what you're doing, if anything, with the grade schools and the high school, municipal high school.
Sure. So Chelsea Prawl, who you've probably met before, she comes to C4 meetings and things. So she is our environmental education coordinator. So whereas I've been focusing on public programs, everything outside of schools. And in my position, she focuses specifically on schools. And in order to offer school programs that teachers will actually take us up on, we have to make it standards based. So it has to meet, next generation science standards, the curriculum standards that are outlined either federally or by the state, because teachers don't have time to teach anything else other than like what's mandated pretty much. So some things that we might be able to do would be to reduce or eliminate the cost of some of these school programs. Transportation is a big barrier. Before COVID, Chelsea was able to, she started a new fundraiser requesting donations specifically to fund the school buses to bring kids out for programs coming to any of our Park District natural areas, but typically Meadowbrook Park or Busey Woods, because she had identified that the main barrier to participation for a lot was busing. The busing system is separate from the school system, and they charge a lot of money for a field trip to happen. So even if we're charging at the Nature Center $25 for the program, the bus might cost $250. So that's one thing that we've done. Chelsea's also looking at creating some new educational kits to go into the classrooms that can be sanitized when they come back and be kind of reused. She's looking to integrate climate change concepts into existing programs. So in addition to creating age appropriate programs specifically about climate change, which honestly would probably be more for the upper elementary, middle school, and possibly high school age students. There are lots of climate change concepts that can be integrated into, lower elementary level programs. And so it would just be about, her weeding through all of those standards, learning standards, and finding how we can offer content that meets the teacher's needs to meet standards and also is addressing climate change education. It's very complicated, and she is one person at the Park District whose job this is. She works a lot with Stacy Clements at the Champaign County Forest Preserve District because that's Stacy's primary job in their environmental department there. And then we work with people from the Champaign County Museums Network. So in that network, most of the local museums are the people who are like field trip destinations. So we've got like the Planetarium, Spurlock Museum, Krannert Art Museum, the Pollinatarium. Those are the types of institutions that are members of the Museums Network. And so we kind of try to support each other in those challenges with meeting the needs of schools.
Maybe there's a way for someone in the U of I's College of Education to take on the challenge of how to integrate climate change in the local school system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the next generation science standards, I think, are built that way. It's on climate change. So, I mean, I don't think it's a far stretch by any means. And those are national standards. And a few other comments and questions, if I could add them in our last minute here. I love the 3 pillars. I think those are great ways to boil it down. I had some maybe side questions. I'll end with the more important one maybe, but just a detailed question. I was wondering about, I love the electric vehicles and electric machinery, and I think there's lots of potential there. And I was wondering how you balance that with goal 1A in that pillar about reducing electricity consumption, and if there's a distinction between sources of electricity. But that's a smaller question. I'm sure you have a good answer to. Maybe we can email if we're out of time. I don't know if you heard of Butterfly Towns USA, I think is a national recognition that Charleston is like a butterfly town USA. And they've worked with Eastern a lot on that, thinking about pollinators and garden spaces. And then last question, maybe the more important one to address if we have any time, is how can we, the SAC, collaborate with this? And I imagine or if you could explain how you've talked with people with the comprehensive plan, especially since the city climate action plan is now kind of in there. It just seems like there's lots of people making climate plans, and the university has one, and there's all sorts of different ones. So I'm wondering if/how we can collaborate, or you already are.
So for the comprehensive plan, I would just say that so far our executive director and I have met with the 2 staff members that are heading it up, as far as I know, and just created like a baseline of overlapping interests, sort of, and I'll continue to be the park district's point of contact for that moving forward. But that's as far as that collaboration has gone. And I think you bring up a good point in that we have a good problem that there's lots of planning processes going on that center around climate change, but I'm not sure like what the best way to move forward is other than this C4 group, the Champaign County Climate Coalition, because it represents all sorts of different people, and anyone can bring a project or a plan or something to it, and then like we work towards that as a group. So maybe that's the current best sounding board or place for collaboration. Do you have any other thoughts, Savannah?
I mean, we sort of started accidentally the C4 group, the Champaign County Climate Coalition, specifically because we were just looking to build partnerships. And then it became evident that everybody who was involved was just so really passionate about trying to keep the progress going and keep the ball rolling. So it was really, it was like the people who attended the first meeting that kind of like grew and took over and became its own thing, which has been really lovely. So yeah, we are kind of hinging a lot of our collaborative. It's kind of like the door. C4 is sort of serving as the door for people to walk through and meet each other and have lots of conversations. So, but we're, as far as how can SAC collaborate more, we're really open to just meeting mutual goals and needs, right? So maybe we have another meeting in the near future. We are hoping that the Park District Board will officially adopt this plan in April. So, maybe in May or something, we start, we have a meeting where we can, compare notes and stuff and see how we can complement each other's goals. And then lastly, Grace, I think the question you asked first is one that we asked Scott recently because it came up in an internal conversation, and that was regarding when we transition everything to electric power, that doesn't mean that it's purely, it's not always renewable energy, right? Is that what you're kind of saying, Grace?
Or just that one goal is to reduce electricity consumption, and then one goal is to increase electric vehicles. And vehicles are going to increase your electricity consumption. So I mean, I think it makes sense. Or if you want to be specific of like green energy or like electricity replacing fossil fuel versus electricity just reduction, which was electricity use in the first place. I think there's
okay.
I was just wondering how you were balancing those things.
Okay. Now I understand your question a little bit more. I think that's a really good point that you make, and I'm going to make a note of it. But yeah, we might just need to be more specific in our language about which types of energy we're hoping to decrease, because if we add electric charging stations for vehicles, it's going to go up.
So, sorry,
ahead.
Karen. One of the things what I'm kind of thinking about that is you can actually, you can do an energy conversion. You can convert you could do sort of a vehicle analysis and the amount of gas used, the amount of fossil fuels used, as well as with like fuel oil, if you're using natural gas on the property at all. You can do a conversion to BTUs, and you can do a conversion to BTUs for electricity as well. So you can get a really good overall picture of your total energy use as it's converted to BTUs, and then look at where you can kind of cut from there. And that's one sort of accounting way that might be interesting to look at it. But
or just emissions wise, yeah, lots of ways you could do it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good point. Thank you both for bringing those things up.
Yeah.
So I think that we are pretty much wrapped up and out of time. But at the beginning of your presentation, you had mentioned a survey. Where's that link? There we go. Okay.
So if you go to urbanaparks.org and then about us, green initiatives, there's way more information there, including the survey, and we can send that in an email too so that you can have the direct link. But this is where this presentation, the full PDF plan and so on is located. And then this is just a snapshot of what the survey will look like. Nothing too complicated, but we do appreciate you taking it, or if you've already taken it, sharing it with your networks so that we can reach as many people as possible during these times.
If there's a member of the community that wants to participate in the survey, but they need it to like be read to them or something, like there's just a reason that they can't do that online and in this space, is there information for who they can call or set up a phone call in order to go through some of the ideas verbally?
That's a great question. I believe that my contact information might be on that webpage, but if it's not, I can go ahead and add that.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if you could send us the link as well back to the SAC, then we'll share that out as part of like the meeting packet, the direct information to it, and send that out to our commission members here. Thank you for the presentation. Really interesting.
Thank you for your
stuff.
time.
Great work.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Yeah.
We have a second presentation this evening, and I believe that is Tracy Barkley, who will be speaking on behalf of the Urbana Community Gardens initiatives and the Solidarity Gardens in particular.
Yes.
So welcome, good to see you here. Thanks for joining.
Glad to be here. We also have Emily McCown on the line. So I wonder.
Great, Jason in our office might be able to move her over so that she can present as well.
Great. Great. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you tonight. We opted not to use slides, but instead go into storytelling mode because we want to share with you the story of Solidarity Gardens and how we came to be and where we're heading. And then we'll end with ways that we think the city might be able to help with this initiative.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So I'll start by, there's Emily. Great. So I'll start by introducing myself, and then Emily's going to introduce herself, and we're just going to kind of tag team the story together. My name is Tracy Barkley. I'm the director of Solidarity Farm. We're a vegetable farm in Southeast Urbana. We're a ministry of St. Matthew Lutheran Church, and we're started back in 2012 to help address food insecurity in our community. So we donate about 1/3 of everything we grow into the community through partnerships with Daily Bread Soup Kitchen, the Food Bank, Jubilee Cafe, a few free markets, and a few other partnerships, and generally just try to help support people in growing food, learning to prepare food, eat healthy, and make food available, especially vegetables, that if you have limited food dollars are not likely to be the first thing that you're going to spend it on. So that's our farm in a nutshell. Emily?
Emily, we can't hear you, and I'm not sure why, because you're not on mute. Okay.
How's that?
Much better.
Good. All right. Thanks for having us, you all. I am Emily McCown, Executive Director of Channing Murray Foundation, which is a campus center, student center for education, culture, social justice oriented, radically inclusive social justice programming is our mission. And I became director just before shelter in place, just late January, early February 2020. And the Red Herring restaurant, the Red Herring vegetarian restaurant, you might know, is in the basement, and they have a food justice mission for sure. And they are very much a part of our governance and programming. So when shelter in place hit, organizers across town saw kind of the impending doom of food insecurity. And that's when our phones were ringing off the hook and emails were flying. And we were all kind of full throttle, full steam ahead towards a project to try and address what we knew would be a growing need to have food available around town. Just as a kind of quick aside, as like, a perspective now that we've been through 2020, is that Feeding America, and I can send you these links, feedingamerica.org is a site that has all of this awesome statistics and data, if you haven't seen it, on food insecurity. And Illinois is actually 4th in the country with increased food insecurity rates through pandemic from 2018 to 2020, and it was 70% for kids increase. So we kind of saw that coming, and we had an awesome meeting. Danielle Chenoweth at the township, Tracy at SOLA, myself, the library, the park district, Chelsea, and others were there to kind of see what we could come up with, and Solidarity Gardens was it. The Cunningham Township was kind of, facilitating those conversations, but SOLA really stepped up into the plate to really kind of break ground, so to speak. And we then at Channing Murray developed the Bucket Brigade, which ended up being a place for Solidarity Gardens to put food and get it into homes. We delivered groceries and meals out of the Red Herring and supplies. But that wasn't the only thing out of Solidarity Gardens planning. The Urbana Free Library was starting to, they were working like a year or more before pandemic on a seed library. And now they've finally launched that in 2021. But those were a part of the conversations. Public health was there for a little bit of that. And that's really something we want to emphasize, is that it's not really, Solidarity Gardens is not a insular kind of one, it's not in one place. It's community-wide. It's a community-wide effort to get people growing and interested in growing their own food and sharing it with their neighbors. Tracy, do you want to talk a little more about the launch?
Sure. Yeah, I think what came out of these conversations is as ultimately knowing that there were going to be more people that needed more food. And it was, what an interesting kind of cross section was that people were quarantining. A lot of people had time on their hands, and spring was happening. And so people were naturally turning to gardening. Seeds were flying off the shelves and plants were being purchased and divided. And I think we started realizing like there's really something to this, and supporting more people gardening, both growing food for themselves and then sharing with others. So those conversations that Danielle pulled us together for really launched this community-wide network of gardening, like more gardening, both for people that were already existing gardeners, supporting people that were trying it for the first time because they had time on their hands and maybe had a yard, or they had a neighbor's yard they could participate in. We already, through the Park District, have awesome community gardens, both at Meadowbrook and Victory Park. So it just, it was kind of interesting to see these community partners network together and see like, what do you have, and how to put them together for the greater good of the community. So the launch looked kind of crazy at the time because everything was crazy at that time. And looking back, I'm kind of amazed at how much it came together, and how much of a foundation was built that now we want to build on for this next year. So what we did in working with the Park District was made some gardens that hadn't been spoken for already available to be used as community gardens, specifically for growing food for donation into our community. both at Meadowbrook and at Victory Park. And so those gardens were expanded considerably. We ended up talking to Dawn Blackman at Randolph Community Garden, and she opened up some garden space also for people to be growing food for donation at her community garden there on Randolph Street. We worked with Lehrman Gardens over near Brookins in Southeast Urbana. Same thing, I mean, these are existing community gardens. They've been doing this for a long time, but what we were trying to do is get more people who were growing for donation out of the community. And then we also supported people who were starting their breaking ground in their yards for the first time. So our farm was able to donate a lot of plants and seeds. The Urbana Free Library was able to donate a lot of seeds. There were people growing in their basements already for their own gardens, but had extras. So we were helping to facilitate those starts to get to gardeners who needed them. We had a big community tool drive. So we just had a flatbed trailer out at Solgrady Farm and said, you know, as you're cleaning out since everyone has time now, or some people have time, now's the perfect time to clean out that garage or shed or basement. And if you have tools or fencing or anything that could be used for garden supplies, like we'll take it. And so we ended up collecting a lot and then distributing a lot through Cunningham Township. So people had some supplies to work with. We coordinated volunteers. So we quickly, through the Nation Builder site that was being used by a CU Mutual Aid group, coordinated volunteers. So people that were able to donate time or even like training and support for new gardeners. We kind of helped. I mean, it was kind of like the ultimate matchmaking service. We're like, oh, you know this person needs to know this, or you need someone strong to help put up a fence, this person needs a fence. You know, it was this kind of crossroads of connecting people. And then we also had some staff members at different organizations that were helping to kind of consult with people about like succession planting, or like what you can grow there, what needs full sun versus part sun, what needs to be harvested when. And then finally we opened up, I think this is the piece that we know we want to do a better job of letting people know about this next year, is where people can donate produce. Because it used to be that like when the Time Center was open, that was just kind of known in the community as a place where if you had extra garden produce, you could drop it off, and the cook, Sam, that was there cooking for the residents of the Time Center, knew what to do with it. They had a huge fridge, and you know, people would bring their extra zucchini and their extra greens and things, and they knew it was being put to good use. But that's something that's kind of missing in our town. Aside from dropping off to Daily Bread Soup Kitchen or now Jubilee Cafe, there's not a good place for garden. There's a lot of people that grow food but can't eat it all. And what we really need in this community, and we've kind of like made, you know, patched some things together, but what we really need is a place where people can drop off extra food and get it to people that need food. And so we did something very simple. We bought 2 huge coolers, and we had one under a shade tree at Solgrady Farm with signage, and it was checked every single day, and people could come and drop off their extra produce. And then we worked it into our donations into the community and made it available at, well, I mean, wherever we were sending our own produce, the food bank, the soup kitchens, our free markets. We also sent some to Red Herring Vegetarian Restaurant, and they turned it into prepared foods. And then also Channing Murray set up coolers at their site also to facilitate another drop-off site in campus. But they could have been used. I mean, we ended up getting a lot of produce, but I feel like that's one area where we probably could maybe use some assistance, or even just in getting the word out as a place where people can take extra food. I think that's all I want to say. I think.
Tracy, let me ask a question just about what,
sure.
just one point. Are you, I mean, I understand what you're saying generally, but would you say that right now there's an opportunity as people have food, they definitely can bring it to these locations that you've identified? Or is there like is it just a lack of awareness that these places are the new place to drop it off? I'm trying to understand, what is it that's like missing? Is it a place to drop it off, or do you feel like you have that okay, and what's missing is people need to know that they can bring that food there?
I think people need to know. I mean, within the garden season, and it's not a place where people can come for food. because
It's
we
the
send it
drop-off.
out through our donation partners or incorporate it into the meal planning at Red Herring. But it's a place for people to drop off produce. So as we get into the growing season and we're hitting like, you know, May through November when people will have surplus, I think it would be great to just make that be, you know, spread it like gossip, that everyone knows when you have too much of whatever, this is a place where it can go, because at both of our sites, you know, someone's there every single day of the week, and it's a way to just quickly move that perishable product to where it needs to go, and make sure the food's not wasted. And, you know, there's just this, we're fortunate in Tree City, USA, and it was cool to hear about Butterfly City, USA. Like, we're Garden City. There's so many people growing, and a lot of people grow because they like growing, not necessarily because they need that much food. So anyway, that's just another matchmaking opportunity that we think we can enhance.
Thanks.
Will you have the same or similar awesome website like last season for connecting all of these resources?
Yeah. So we'll share the connections of where people can go for more information, how to get connected at the end. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that website
No.
was awesome last year. A great thing to share.
I'm going to show just a little graphic about the Bucket Brigade. We can talk about a little bit of like our successes, a little more of our successes from last year, and preparation for like also what do we learn, what do we want more, and you know, the Bucket Brigade delivering to explicitly low-income families. It was, yeah, over 1,000 households, almost 3,000 people, and you can see the demographics there. And you can also see the cooler, you know, our simplified version of what Tracy was talking about, a place for people to donate. But I'll also say, we didn't plan on telling you this, but we're building a walk-in cooler for community access on our property at Channing Murray. So it feels like Sola had that, and now we're having that. So we'll have these kind of 2 points, East Urbana and West Urbana, to really like have a nice kind of plot across town for really moving that produce through the community, which is pretty cool. Through the Solidarity Gardens program, we developed over 1,000 square feet of new garden space at Meadowbrook, Victory Garden, and Home Gardens too, just collectively. We distributed over 1,200 vegetable starts and seed packets. And as Tracy mentioned, coordinated a tool and garden supply collection and distribution, sharing tools and things across town. We coordinated and trained over 20 regular volunteers, and Fiona Monroe, who works at Solidarity or at Sola Gratia, I would say is the kind of queen and all-star of that volunteer coordination. And we had over 100 volunteers interested in helping through that Nation Builder platform. We produced over 800 pounds of food and over 2,000 meals through the Bucket Brigade, which is pretty cool. In terms of what do we learn, I feel really excited about with our kitchen capacity and walk-in cooler. If Sola Gratia is kind of on the end of growing and advocating for how we grow and get people in the ground and that education on that side, I feel really excited about Red Herring's power and Channing Murray's ability to facilitate the like food processing. And also the advocacy for families, hungry families, and talking to them, figuring out what they want to be eating. And we've all been collectively trying to really make sure that the what people are growing is matching what people are hungry for. And we found that culturally, it's very different for different demographics, and we're aggregating data on, you know, cooking greens, not lettuce. That's what Tracy is saying at the mobile market, is people just want these cooking greens, not salad greens. sweet potatoes is kind of a cross-cultural thing. So we're trying to really hone in on what these culturally specific produce items are. And what we were seeing and what Sola and our partners are seeing at their mobile market was that like the line was there every time. It's definitely something that's needed and wanted, is this fresh produce in these communities that are facing food insecurity. They had over 100 families regularly. And we also distributed some amount of, container gardens for folks who maybe are in mobile homes or, don't have yard access to grow. I think that I'm excited about building the processes for cooking teams to be able to receive produce and process it and make it just that one little step closer for hungry families who are maybe working too many jobs or, have whatever the obstacle is to getting fresh food in their bellies, that like we can hopefully find those volunteers to close that gap and help make fresh food more accessible. And we're learning a little bit about what those obstacles are from last year and hoping to address those this year and make the program even stronger. Tracy, do you want to go next?
Yep. And how are we doing on time check? Do we have a few minutes left? Are we okay?
Yeah, and I'll have some time for questions and things like that as well.
Okay. So next steps, looking ahead, we've been planning all winter. The Park District has been awesome in allowing us to expand again the amount of space available at Victory Park and at Meadowbrook. They're allowing us to install fencing and turn them into perennial plots, which is huge because not having to take down fences every year is a big, that's a big pain. We are trying to be, last year it was just like doing what we could with what we had under the constraints of COVID. This year, we're trying to make sure that whatever we're investing is for the long haul, because we see that, obviously we don't want food insecurity to last. It would be nice if the problem went away, but it's not likely to anytime soon. And really, teaching more people to grow, supporting more people in growing their own food, it's a very empowering thing. So we would like to make sure that we're making investments into a sustainable program. So we're really looking at kind of our input and output, how much time are we putting into things for what output. We're really looking for more food being produced in our community. So this year we'll be really directing folks that are interested in gardening to support the community gardening aspect more, because, many hands make light work, and there's just such an awesome opportunity for people to learn from each other and, grow together. Also multi-generational, it'd be awesome to get more people, more kids growing to affect future generations. We will be doing the series in partnership with the library and the Park District, well, everybody, I guess, everyone's part of this, to put on cooking demonstrations of how to use fresh produce in a very easy way with non-expensive ingredients and, not too many bells and whistles in the kitchen, so that people are learning to produce food from their garden, or prepare food from their garden a little bit better. And then we also are wanting to strengthen partnerships. Lehrman Gardens, the community garden could use some more additional support. So as we find volunteers and have opportunities to plug them into that community garden, we will. There's a New American Welcome Center that's working with many different immigrants in our community, and we'd like to be helping to support gardens that are same thing, are culturally diverse and specific and allowing for seed swapping and plant sharing. Douglas Park, our farm had a hand in getting a community garden started at Douglas Park that was going pretty strong for 5 years, and then has kind of, it's been quiet. It's kind of been weed covered. There's still some strawberries growing there, but we'd like to breathe some new life into that as a growing space and as a distribution point for food in that neighborhood as well. I think that covers it. Oh, and then also, sorry, more prepared foods. And that's what Emily's going to talk a little bit more about. I think, you know, there are plenty of people that are not able to garden or are not able to cook for themselves. And so then receiving healthy prepared foods is a real blessing. So we'd like to be able to do that more as well.
For sure. Thanks, Tracy. You know, the prepared foods is definitely like a fixture of the Bucket Brigade. It's kind of how we communicate our care to people who are facing food insecurity, where it's like you're not standing in a food line. Some community member, some neighbor is coming to your doorstep and saying, hey, you know, I care about you, which is, you know, just a big deal of how we kind of lift each other up in this town and why I love Urbana so much. The Bucket Brigade has kind of branched off into 2 different programs now, and the second program is what we call Canasta Básica, and it's a partnership with the New American Welcome Center, and it's specifically for immigrant families. And so that some of that information that we're learning is that Latinx families, these immigrant families, are really keen on the fresh produce, more than anybody, vocal more than any of the other recipients that have given us feedback, just like, give us your produce. So that's really exciting that they're just like, you know, they're really ready for it. And I think that if we do get the word out saying, hey, gardeners, hey, surplus, bring it on, we're ready for it. We've developed those systems, and we're excited to actually, have a clear need that we can meet. And so to kind of wrap it up, you all, thanks for kind of listening to our story. We're excited to get the word out. And I think that there's a lot of ways that the city can help with this initiative. We've talked with Scott a little bit about making small city parcels available for resident gardening, and we hope that that can be something that opens up over time, and especially looking out for parcels that have access to water, because that's a critical piece of the kind of community garden. And like, again, just promoting those systems for receiving and distributing produce, getting the word out. We can also emphasize a lot of ways you can help us through, getting the word out about needing volunteers. And getting donations for tools, seeds, plants, and all that. So, Tracy, is there anything else you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Hot off the press, we just have a flyer that was just finished today that we'll be distributing, and would love to see if we could share this through your channels. But this basically just says, you know, how people can donate their extra produce, how they can volunteer, and then if you're in need of fresh food, where to go. And then there, Grace, sorry, I didn't have it handy at the time. That's at the bottom is our website, and then also our email contact information. But to go to the website, it's very easy to navigate. It's easy, you know, depending on where you want to plug in or feel like you have something to offer or something that's needed. It's pretty easy to figure out where to go. And then finally, the other thing, and I will send a copy of this to, should I send it to Scott or Stacey?
If you send it to Scott, he'll share it out with the commission members. Thank you. And we'll put it as part of kind of the packet information that's included with the notes.
Great. And then I had one other idea. It used to be, so our farm is at market every Saturday, the Urbana Farmers Market. And it used to be that the Eastern Illinois Food Bank had volunteers that would go around to the different farmers and collect the extra produce. And it ended up not being great for the food bank because they're closed starting at Fridays at noon. And so there wasn't a great way for their volunteers to like get the produce to the food bank. It wasn't able to be distributed out until Monday. So in terms of just perishable nature of produce, you know, there was a time lag there. 2 years ago, then Food Not Bombs started kind of filling that hole and collecting some food that vendors were able to share, and then they were making it available through a potluck at Westview Park. I don't think that's happening anymore, or it's not happening at this, maybe at the scale that it was. We didn't have any pickups this last year at the farmer's market. So I just, as a vendor with my SOLA hat on, I do want to say that there are plenty of us that would, if it was facilitated, would love to see produce picked up and made available. And I just wonder if that could be a recommendation to the city of Urbana and management of the markets to partner with Solidarity Gardens. And it could be that we have volunteers that are picking it up and bringing it back to Sola's coolers, or it's Channing Murray's new cooler, and either using it to support prepared meals through Red Herring or go out through the channels that we already have in existence. And I don't know what would be needed if there's any, I mean, it might be that we would have all of the links covered in terms of transportation volunteers. And I'm not sure what would be needed from the city other than maybe just support and approval.
Yeah, we can raise that issue and see if there's an opportunity.
Great. Okay, that's all that Emily and I had to share, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or just hear from you.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, go ahead, Tiger.
So you are targeting those food desert areas. I like that. That's a great idea. How you doing that? Like with a table? Do you leave a table there and just, is that right?
For distributing?
Yeah, for distributing. How does that work?
So as far as distributing the neighborhoods, our farm runs in partnership with Public Health Free Friday Market in the Silverwood area. So on Colorado Avenue in Southeast Urbana. So that's every Friday, June through October, where we're offering free produce. And then the Public Health offers hygiene kits and masks and a number of other things. They bring dry goods also. And then we also this last year partnered with the mobile market operated by Carle Hospital and CU City Farms, and Soul is a partner and Prosperity Gardens is a partner. They are stationed twice a week at Churchland. Well, it's every week at Illinois WorkNets on Thursdays, and then it alternates every other week between Church of the Living God and Calvary Baptist Church. So a lot of the produce that was collected through Solidarity Gardens that wasn't directed to Channing Murray Red Herring would then go out to one of those free markets. And so those locations have been identified both as food deserts, but also have partners that can help support, you know, a huge market or, you know, a huge bus, and also help with getting the word out to folks that might want to make use of those resources.
Okay. And one more, you say every time the bus is out, you get a long line at the bus? Where, like when the bus go out?
Well, I'll tell you, not now that it's cold. I mean, the mobile market's still operating twice a week. It's, you know, there are not as many people coming now because of COVID, it can't be on the bus. But when we started the mobile market that last September, we were busy the entire time, and usually we were there 4 hours at a time. And then our free market on Fridays, we've been running that for 5 years now. And I mean, it is almost difficult to set up because there are so many people waiting for us when we get there, which is a good thing that the word of mouth is spread and people see that as a resource. It's not a good thing there are that many people that are in need, but it's now it's 1 to 3 every Friday afternoon. And yeah, we have a line set up. So we moved the location. It used to be a Dollar Tree. In the Dollar Tree parking lot, it became a problem there because of the line, and it would end up being a liability issue apparently for Dollar Tree. Now we're in front of the Fellowship, Cornerstone Fellowship Church. It's just, it's right by Steer Place. Right. So there's a bus stop there, so it's easy transportation. It serves a lot of people from Steer House and from the neighborhood. The church has been awesome to work with. It's just south of Crestview Park. So there are a lot of folks in that area that can just safely walk there and use the resources. That's not to say, I mean, unfortunately there are more neighborhoods that can use some assistance, and I think that's something that the mobile market in partnership with Carle is looking at, especially in Urbana, because they don't have any Urbana locations right now. So they're trying to identify where where there is need and where there might be an opportunity to set up additional sites.
Okay, because they shared a map. Stacy shared a map with me that showed the food desert, where those food deserts are located. And I think that's a great map we could use. This is a great idea. I love this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Marcus had their hand raised.
Yes. Is there a site, a website, or some other resource that compiles all of the different organizations and places where the different things are being offered that gets regularly updated? So if the mobile market is a particular place and what it's offering, not necessarily details about specific vegetables, but like produce versus bread versus leftover prepared food or specially prepared food, with the contact information for all of these organizations that are doing all this fabulous work. Because even as a technologically savvy person trying to keep track of all of the different programs that you guys were talking about, like I couldn't keep up with it. And I know that it probably shifts when needs shift and weather and resources shift.
Yes, that is an excellent
put up.
That's an excellent point, Marcus. I know when we started our Free Friday market several years ago, we didn't put anything online. We just printed a gazillion postcards and just handed them out, and people, it was word of mouth, it spread, and we made sure that we were extremely consistent, that we were there, we were communicating what the season was, what the times were, just because it's hard to keep track of so many things. I do know that there is a community resource called Find Food Illinois. It's a community food map. There are some mistakes with it. There are a lot of people working on it, but this is something that U of I Extension put together for exactly this reason, to keep track. So if someone is looking for something on a particular day or in a particular part of town, they can go to this map and figure out where the food pantries are, where the free markets are. So I am sure there are, it's still tricky, but it's, they have laid in here public transports and, a lot of different things that I think would be useful, but it's still a tool that's under development, but it's called Find Food Illinois.
Okay, thanks. I'll be contacting them, and thank you for pointing me in their direction.
Morgan.
This is great. Thank you so much for coming and explaining it. We had heard about the Bucket Brigade through, I had heard about the Bucket Brigade through CCNet, but it just sounds like there's so much going on. And it made me wonder, because CCNet also had a presentation by the Urban Farm Project with Royce and Brinkmeyer. Have you guys interacted with them some? One of the things that's interesting to me with that is it's more of a, like Royce and Brinkmeyer, right? They do real estate and development, and they have taken one of their existing sites that's where they could build another apartment complex and instead fostered a community garden. So I think it'd be great for you guys to have a connection with them to build that. And the person who connected CCNet leadership to the Urban Farm Project effort was Cassie Carroll, and I'm sure you know how to get a hold of Cassie.
I've just started hearing about this project, so I'm glad to hear this again, and we'll be following up on it.
So are you familiar already with CCNet? Like brown bag groups. So they have CCNet people, there's a Facebook page for CCNet. And if you go to the video posts in December of 2020, we had a brown bag from the Urban Farm Project. So you can watch the video on Facebook.
That's great.
Awesome. I think we need to kind of wrap up the presentation at this point. Thank you so much for the great information. And yeah, I have maybe some questions if it's okay for me to kind of reach out to Tracy or Emily kind of offline. Would love to connect on that, and looking forward to good work in the spring. I think now, like, it is really weird thinking about gardening stuff. People say it's time to starting your starts like 6 weeks before the last frost, and that's now, right? And I don't have like a basement with grow lamps to be able to like start starts in my basement, but it's definitely in the back of my mind that like it's time to start planting. And so we look forward to seeing really exciting things out of this organization, and new things happening for this year and this spring and summer. Like it's happening. Get ready.
It is. And if you don't get your seeds started, and it's for anybody who's listening, watching this recording, there will be plants available. So check the website.
Do you make recommendations for like where people could be looking for seeds, or where to buy seeds? Like, do you have preferred catalogs or places for people to go? Do you share that information? Is there like a blog or a community board for people to share information on that, beyond going to the library? The library is a wonderful resource if you are going to look for something. For example, I know that like some of the seed catalog companies were not selling seeds to the public on certain days because their commercial supply has to be like met, and the need is just like so huge this year, so that there's challenges even in the supply chain just for product.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's actually, I mean, it's getting harder for home growers to have access to seeds. So the fact that the Urbana Free Library has a seed lending library is huge, and SOLA has seeds to offer as well, but there's also just seed swapping and sharing. And so I think going through the Solidarity websites, also there is a blog, or there's a Emily, I don't know what we call
message
it,
board.
a message board where people can be connected. And there's also, there's a lot of resources. If you go to the website, there's a lot of opportunities. And then I would also recommend the Facebook group, Seed Plant People. There's also a lot of, there's just so many awesome people in our community to help teach each other. And that's kind of the spirit of what Solidarity Gardens is about, is this like decentralized network of people teaching each and supporting each other. We have more than enough to share with each other. So that's what we're doing. Thank you. We'll follow up with sending the flyers and resources.
Great, wonderful. Thanks for joining tonight, you guys. Thank you.
So much.
Thanks.
Generosity, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Next up on our business this evening is the staff report.
Good evening. First up is an update on our community solar project. I'm very happy that the solar developer has begun doing vegetation removal and land clearing and grading and so forth. So we are moving forward, and that's very exciting. Some updates on our geothermal Urbana-Champaign program. We've got 7 contracts signed, totaling 28 tons of capacity. And we've got 25 proposals. This was when I wrote the memo last week. 25 proposals out for review by property owners. So doing well. Please keep encouraging folks to attend a GeoPower Hour. Staff is working on a greenhouse gas inventory for city facilities and operations. Just missing a couple of pieces of data, and we'll be able to finish that up. I expect that we'll share that next month. We did some public engagement at some classes in the last month. Courtney with Youth Cycle has, in collaboration with the other cities in the county, has electronics recycling event coming up, as well as a household hazardous waste recycling event coming up. Please do check into the websites for that. It'll be posted on the City of Urbana's website. we'll be using the registration system, so there'll be limited time slots, and they go fast. So if you've got a lot to get rid of, be sure to get there as soon as it opens.
Is that one event or two events?
2 different events.
Okay.
Our next Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting would be April 6th at 7 p.m. Before I conclude, though, I would like to share screen and just answer one of the questions that came up earlier regarding fuel switching from gasoline to the grid, to electricity from the grid. Let's see how I can do this. There we go. So everyone sees the charts. So what this shows is the pollution emissions from fueling your car with gasoline, hybrid gas and electric, plug-in hybrid gas and electric, and all electric, based on the carbon intensity of gasoline, which doesn't really change, and the carbon intensity of our specific Illinois grid mix right now. So even though we have a lot of coal and natural gas in Illinois, it's still lower pollution to power your car with grid electricity than gasoline. So I just wanted to share that. This is a Department of Energy website. Thank you. Take any questions.
That's great. And one of the things that's interesting is people generally, if you're looking to upgrade to an electric or a hybrid, the majority of folks are looking to replace an older car, not a newer car. And so the older cars, of course, have much higher gasoline demand than the average car or the average gasoline powered car. So there's an added benefit there too. Just any upgrade to your car will improve the efficiency in that sense. Or switch to a bike.
I have a Geo Power Hour question. I think I heard maybe a false rumor that there were no more Geo Power Hours or something, or like they were ending on a certain date. Is there a website or some information out there where I can see the list of the different geothermal power hours and decide which one to attend?
Sure. Let me share that with you as well. The website is geothermaluc.org. Just scroll down and here are our geothermal power hours.
Fantastic. Thank you. And one more question on the Household Hazardous Waste and Electronics Recycling Program. On electronics in particular, because we know that there are limited spaces, is there anything special about, only one household per car? If I had, one item and my neighbor had one item and my across the street neighbor had one item, is there any reason to not just get with those neighbors and try and get one slot and pool the electronics into one thing instead of driving 3 vehicles over with, a small amount of electronic recycling?
There's probably some rules. I can see if I can find them real quickly, but there's probably some rules regarding how they're organizing these events. I don't know if that's addressed, if that's encouraged or discouraged, but I'll see if I can find it.
Okay. Great. Are there any other questions this evening for Scott on the staff report?
Yes, I was wondering if you have a feel for how well the subscriptions to the community solar is going.
So they're going slower than they would have if we were able to do in-person engagement with it. But they're still being subscribed up. So we want to just keep doing all of our communications. I think there's going to be some more direct marketing, mailers, and so forth from the vendor in the future. And as things maybe start opening up in the next few months, we may get into some in-person events.
Anything else about our collaboration with the comprehensive plan? If we have a meeting set or things we could, prepare for ahead of time or anything?
Well, I encourage everyone on the call and ask you to encourage others to go ahead and create an account on the Imagine Urbana website. That is the platform for the public engagement. It's all digital public engagement for the foreseeable future. But go ahead and create an account, and then there's multiple different ways to provide input and feedback through that website. If you have a Zoom venue, a meeting or a group or something like that, certainly contact the folks through that website as well. And if you're interested in having someone speak to your event.
Yes, I just meant as far as for this event and for SAC, or if we can get there in next months down the road, because it's going through summer, correct?
I don't know what the next milestone is, to be honest. But tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking for SAC.
I mean, inviting, I'm blanking on their names right now, but inviting the people who are leading that to the SAC. And sounds like they're interested in joining all sorts of community organization meetings, but especially with the climate action plan and the water plan being absorbed into it. I guess just for some reason in my head, I thought that the SAC or, your role through sustainability would have a little more input than just community input.
I think did we have them a few months back at SAC? Maybe a year ago.
No, we did have them out, and we discussed, it was still in early planning phases for them. So they were sort of telling us a little bit about what their intention was for the comprehensive plan at that time, and thinking about the way that the SAC would be able possibly to be engaged with that. And it was definitely before sort of like the launch of the website and the surveys like through the website, and maybe even before all of those ideas and that work had hatched.
Yeah, let me follow up with them and see if it might be appropriate for them to come back. They may say yes, we'll be there right away, or they may say, well, let's do a little bit of the sort of the broad broadcast and getting public input from the general public, and then circle back. I'm not sure, but I'll follow up with them.
Anything else on, I guess, your role in that? I'm just really interested in this climate action plan and water action plan, and how / if they're going to be seriously incorporated, because it seems like those were pretty concrete plans to just be like an idea in the comprehensive plan.
So the way I think this is going to proceed is like casting a wide net among the general public, talking to a lot of existing groups. And then when there's sort of a first iteration of, okay, here's the chapters or the elements or the themes, I think that's where, a staff person like myself is maybe going to get a little bit more technical input, and also might be a good opportunity at that juncture to bring them back to the SAC, where we're really starting to put meat on the bones.
Okay, thanks.
I will say that all of us should individually take some time to, and anyone watching, anyone who's involved and interested in having a sustainable future community, really should take time to establish that account for yourself. I have one on the imagineurbana.com website, and start filling things in. So I went through and put in a couple of my own, and then I got my teenager and said, which ones, what are some of the places that you find interesting and important? And we started adding things for her. I want to do the same with my parents, because I don't think they're very technologically savvy. And so, getting on a phone call with them and kind of working together on, this is what we'd like to see in our community. And I think that the more people who repeat, even if you see it there, say it also if you want it as well. Like say someone says we should convert some of the streets to bike pedestrian only. So that would be something that many people saying would have a stronger voice, right? The more people who give input. And this is exactly the kind of thing that allows us to make real changes around the community. This planning process, as more people, whoever can, whatever we can get into there becomes part of the thoughtful discussion about how to prioritize community resources in the future. So it's really an important process to participate in. Lots of P's. I've only just scratched the surface, but I think we should all really go back. I was thinking about our Lincoln, the what's in your square process. And I wanted to take like everything that we'd said from that and add it to this as well.
I did find a little bit of information about the electronics recycling, only that that there's a limit to number of TVs per household. So, you know, if 5 households all put one TV in one car, then they're going to be a problem. But I don't see anything else about, you know, grabbing some of your neighbor's stuff for them and bringing it along. I guess that seems okay.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that information. Is that on the Urbana website publicly, or is it?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Awesome. All right. Are there any other questions for Scott for the staff report at this point? Okay. I see here, so on our agenda this evening, we did have an unfinished business for further discussion on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion goals. I'm going to be honest with everybody, we've had 2 amazing presentations tonight. We've had really wonderful discussions, and I would be really interested in entertaining a motion to continue that item for the next, for a meeting, which would be 2 months from now. And what I can do is kind of give everybody an update on the topic of our meeting next month. Next month, our whole discussion and conversation is going to include a representative from the Illinois EPA. We've also had folks from the city invite representatives from Emulsicote to discuss the ongoing issue of kind of odor and emissions coming from the Emulsicote plant in the East Urbana neighborhood. So that is going to be a public forum type meeting at our next meeting.
So you're saying that presentation is in 1 month, so you'd like to move the presentation, the JEDI presentation for tonight to 2 months from now?
I mean, I don't have a presentation for that this evening. Did anybody? I don't know if anybody had updates or presentation items under the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Goals discussion for this evening. I don't have a presentation this evening, other than to continue the discussion. So my request is to see if folks would want to continue that 2 months from now.
We do have a meeting April 6th, right? But you're saying that one is already
That
booked?
entire meeting is going to be devoted to a discussion with the Illinois EPA and Emulsicote. It'll be a kind of a public forum type event. Scott, is there information already available on the SAC website, including the documents from the Emulsicote and IEPA documents?
Let me check that real quick.
Thank you.
I just want to take to Tiger, you mentioned something about a presentation, but you don't have anything else that you were planning on sharing tonight?
No, not tonight. Nope, not tonight. but I'm okay to move it off 2 months. That's fine. Mhm.
Well, so we need a motion to modify the agenda? Is that correct? Is that what you were saying, Stacy?
Yep. A motion to modify the agenda to move unfinished business from this week until the next available meeting.
I would move to modify the agenda to move the unfinished business from this week to the next available meeting, which we currently believe is May. And I would ask that meeting, so that's my motion, and I would ask that meeting, plan around having at least half an hour for a discussion about these goals so we don't end up having it happen again.
Okay. So Morgan, there was a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Great. Any discussion on what Morgan proposed, which was to have that be 30 minutes and to, I guess, more tailor the discussion around goals and whatnot. So just additional preparation. So does anyone have anything that they want to add to that part of the discussion?
I guess I would love to have a little more direction in this, I guess, especially if we have 2 months before we pick up the conversation, just if there's things that we can be working on or looking into in the meantime. I'm feeling a little directionless and just wondering what to be doing about it in the next 2 months, or if there are things that we can individually be working on.
That's a good question. The question,
That's a good question. Yeah.
what are we trying to accomplish? So, and it's kind of having the conversation, but I feel like in the last meeting, Grace and I shared a bunch of great information. Most of it was Grace's info pulled together. I participated, really appreciated it, and learned some things. But what are we trying to, what's the goal? And for me, the goal is not the goal of setting goals, but the goal, what are we trying to accomplish first? Not forever, but incrementally. And for me, I think we need a task that we work together on pursuing. So maybe it's multiple tasks.
So I think and I agree with that completely. I think that becomes part of the discussion. And I'm glad that you reminded all of us about that, which was, I think that our tasks were to come back and report on kind of individually through reflection to report back on. So what might be the priority items that we saw out of those goals that if we each were working sort of together as the SAC in moving one of those priorities forward at one time. There's capacity and the ability of one person to work on something, but it would be really great. What if we were able to focus in a particular direction for a particular set of time? And so I think that we're still in the churn of how do we identify what that goal is? And so I think that that's an awesome discussion, but one I'm frankly too tired to have tonight.
Yeah, I agree with what Morgan was saying, because that's what I took from the last conversation is which one of these items we would like to tackle or prioritize, according to each one of those goals. And I think we're supposed to come back and choose the ones that we figure would be easiest to either tackle with less input, but more output, right?
And what's the most productive, most impactful?
Most impactful. Okay, yeah.
Impact per effort.
Okay.
Only so many of us. There's only so much we can do. So the amount of effort, time we have,
right?
How much impact, or which are the more impactful?
Is it okay then if and I was confused about this, being a new member, is it okay if we start reaching out to each other? Can we do that outside of this? Go over what we think? That's okay?
You can reach out to one person at a time, or you could reach out to everybody all at once, but it gets really weird with response and what the rules are on public meetings and what constitutes a public meeting. And it is very, there are rules, they feel weird sometimes around if there's response over email between a group of people who are all together on the same commission, then did that email and the content of that email start to become a public meeting in itself?
Right.
And so we want to avoid that impropriety. But that doesn't mean that you can't talk to fellow commissioners about your ideas and that you couldn't,
But
bounce
only one
that
at a
off of
time.
people, but one at a time.
One at a time. Okay, because I was confused about that because I did have some questions, but I said, wait a minute, I'll just wait, raise these questions up at this meeting.
Well, and one time, Grace and I sort of got assigned as the two of us could talk as much as we wanted to with just each other, and then come back and report to the group, to the commission.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe that's something, if Grace, if you have time, maybe you and Tiger could have that conversation,
Yeah.
these particular projects. I'm happy to step out of it. I mean, I was only volunteering it for this particular one at that time, not now. So
Okay. Yeah.
that would make sense.
That would work.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, also just thinking of the idea that, I mean, we could do that between meetings, maybe, just an idea. I don't know, the teacher in me wants to, pair up between meetings and rotate your partner. And it's like, work with that person to come up with things like big stuff, especially like the Jedi goals and trying to think about really big picture stuff that it's nice to brainstorm with someone and not be confined to Zoom or a meeting. Or just like to think about it. Hey, sometime throughout the month, just think about SAC and something and just to chat and catch up, I think would be fun.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah. And I mean, so just like, I'll just add some other part to it. Like, we talk about sustainability here, and we don't have like Jedi goals, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Like, we don't have some corner on that as the SAC to be like, you can only talk about these things in your life in the context of like an SAC meeting, because now that you're on this commission, you're only allowed to discuss sustainability in the privacy of like a public meeting. Privacy of public meeting. It's a really weird concept. So like, continue to have conversations about sustainability and justice and inclusion and figure things out, right? Even amongst each other. When it crosses into business, when it impacts actions that we take as the committee, that starts moving into the public meeting aspect. Yeah. Cool. All right, well, we spent 20 minutes talking about it anyway, you guys. Let's go ahead and adjourn. We will continue the conversation at the next meeting. We'll talk about we'll have 30 minutes at the next available meeting for these discussion about these goals. And please check the website, the SAC website, for packet materials for the emulsicoat discussion. It's there. It is up. It's on the website, and members of the public as well as members of the commission will have the opportunity to ask questions to Illinois EPA, their representative, as well as to emulsicoat representative if they join us that evening. So yeah. All right, with no further business before the commission this evening, I call the meeting adjourned. Good to see everybody. Thanks for joining.